All right. Hey, welcome everybody to another testimonial kind of slash case study journey student interview. And I love doing these type of interviews because these are the really cool ones that are the journey one. Now, there's not always a big end result that you see a lot of times on testimonials. And Brandi is with me today. She's been with me. I don't know. How long have you been with us now? For 6 months, something like that?
Ish, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right about
Something
that.
like that. So we're still building, we're still building your whole thingy, and there's been some trials and tribulations that we're going to talk about today, right? And so this is the reason I like to do these type of interviews, to show you that wherever you are, you can get where you want to go. And there's nothing wrong with having those big interviews on, hey, this is how I made a gajillion dollars by going through Joey's system or whatever system you're looking at. But these are the more important ones. And that's why I want to bring on Brandi. And she is a fitness expert. She's helping women who are weight loss resistant actually lose weight. I think that's really cool. Can you explain a little bit about that, Brandi?
Right. So I specialize in women who are weight loss resistant, which means they have to meet certain criteria before they can come on and work with me. Basically, women that I work with usually are women who have very slow to low metabolisms, and they've kind of destroyed their metabolisms in one of two ways. First, either through doing it themselves by, crash diets, yo-yo dieting, fat burners, weight loss pills, appetite suppressants, meal replacement shakes, those kind of things. Or women who are kind of recovering from maybe a major disease or disorder, and they need help kind of revamping their metabolism and trying to get some weight off. So I usually work with those two women.
Awesome. And I love the way that you've actually niched down into, who it is that you're actually working and what the results are, because that's a big, one of the biggest secrets in positioning yourself as an expert and or putting out products and services, right?
Right.
Is like knowing exactly who you're supposed to be targeting. I know it's a cliche and everybody talks about this, but I found that even working with you in the short little while that we have been working with, that we've refined your message a little bit better, and really gotten into who it is that you're helping, which clearly by me asking that question right now, you're like nailed it. So congratulations.
Thank you. But we've even niched it down a little bit further because right now we're actually only specializing on those women who are weight loss resistant and have an upcoming wedding. So we really refined it down to a very specific woman.
Right. And that helps you with the targeting and the advertising and all that stuff, right?
It really does. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get into all those details, I want to ask you, what was your situation before joining can't even say my own product name, the Profit Lab? What was your life like, the business like, before you actually joined us?
I think that anybody that is in the online business can probably relate to this, but I felt like I didn't have a direction. I felt like I was listening to everybody. I was podcasting all the time. I was watching all of the, all the pros and everybody. And I felt like I was like doing everything that I was supposed to do. I was checking off all of the like all of the list. And I was like doing everything, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And I really didn't feel like I knew what I was missing or what I was supposed to be checking. Like, what is next? What am I supposed to be doing? Why? Like, I know what they're telling me to do and I feel like I'm doing it, but am I really, do I have a path to follow? I just felt kind of like I was floating, like I was lost a little bit. I remember just feeling like I needed somebody to help me just like bring it in and like narrow it down.
That's awesome. And so when you joined, then what happened next? What did the process look like when you first joined?
Well, when I first joined, actually before I even joined, we had our call. And I'd like to talk about that for a second because
cool.
I felt like during our consult call, you really showed me so much value that I left the call knowing more than what I knew going into the call. Like I even had a clear path before I left the call, and I was like taking notes, you know what I mean? And so I left the call feeling like, okay, I can do this stuff. And then it was like, okay, but now I just need somebody to make me like fine tune it for me and help keep me accountable, give me a list, give me steps, that kind of stuff. And so once I joined the Strategic Profit Lab, what we did was we started jumping on the biweekly calls and the Wednesday calls. And looking at my stuff, like just
Mhm.
started looking at what, see, and the thing was, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be looking at.
Right.
I didn't even know where, like, I was throwing all the stuff out there, doing the videos and doing the emails and doing all the stuff. But how did I know if it was working? How did I know if it was resonating with my audience? How did I even know if I was touching my audience, speaking to my audience? And so one of the first things that we did inside of the SPL was that we were able to dive into some of my emails and find out what I was supposed to even be looking at to know if they were even working. And so that was fantastic. That was one of the first things that we did.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember that. That was a cool call. There was a couple of calls we did that,
Yeah, we did.
looking at your emails and the structure and all that kind of stuff, which is, I'm glad you brought up the strategy call before, because I never really talk about that. And I mean, I'm, a lot of calls, strategy calls, they're kind of those sales calls in disguise, right? That's really all that it is. It's like, how do I get somebody on here so I can sell them stuff? And I
Mhm.
want to make sure that people know that that's not what the call is about. Did you feel sold at any point? I know that we didn't talk about this. We didn't set all this up, but you brought this up, and I really want to make sure that
Yeah.
people know that it really is to help you. And then you decide afterwards whether or not.
Yeah. No, I didn't feel sold at all. I mean, I think that I might have even asked you what it was like what the cost was. I think that I'm in the business. I knew what the call was about, but you didn't sell me on it. I believe I brought it up to you and said, well, tell me what my opportunities are. Like what levels can I come in and work with you so that I can see if it's something that works for me and where I'm at right now. So I didn't feel sold at all. I can't remember how long the call was, but I remember you were just like giving me like gold nuggets, just like drop. And I was like, slow down, simmer down. I gotta write everything down. So it was, but I didn't feel sold at all. I just remember being like, okay, you tell me how I can learn more from you. You tell me how I can work with you. Cause I need this. I need this
Awesome.
in my life.
That's awesome. Thank you. And so the process, you've been with me now, let's say 6 months. I don't know the exact date, what the time frame has been, but let's call it 6 months. And so what is the process? I know you talked a little bit about that right now with the copy and the emails, but can we dig a little bit deeper into what the process has helped you do over these last 6 months? Like, basically what have you gotten from it? Is there anything change? Is there maybe something that you could tell in terms of details to anybody listening right now?
Sure. So one of the first things that you taught me was how to speak to my audience. I think that when we start a business, and I hope I'm speaking for everybody. I'm speaking for myself, but I bet a lot of people can resonate this. When we think that we know what our audience is thinking, and we think we know what their words are, because typically we are our own audience. We are our demographic, our ideal customer. And so we speak using the words that we use. But the problem with that is that we are 1 or 2 steps or 4 or 5 steps ahead of where they are. So
Right.
our language has already graduated to a different level. So we're naturally using language that they may not use, know, or understand yet. But yeah, we're using that language because that comes natural to us. So one thing that you taught me was how to find the words and the actual language that my audience is using. And you gave me a couple of steps to do that. You gave me a couple of ways to find the language that they're using. You told me to open up a Google Doc, which I did, and I still have, and I still use to this very day.
That's awesome. I love that.
I literally copy and paste. When we have a private group that people come into, we have a series of questions, and when they come into the group, before I approve them, I copy and I paste it right into a Google Doc. So I know the words they're using, and they're not the words I'm using, because like I said, I'm a couple steps ahead. I'm trying to teach them to become, where I am, but it's hard for us to remember that we were once using that same language. And so it's nice. So that's the first thing that you did, was you taught me how to just get a Google Doc and just find their language. And you said, go here, do these things, and then look at their language and then use those words. And so I've been able to use those words in a couple of different areas. First is in my emails. We use their actual, I will use quotes, their actual quotes in our emails and in my live videos. I will say, if somebody says, I have a hard time, I can't stop eating sweets and I need to find time to work out. Well, to me, that means motivation and self-control, but that's not what that means to them. So I can't write an email that says, do you need help with motivation and self-control? I need to write an email and a live video that says, you can't stop eating sweets or find time to work out. You know, boom, there it is. And they're like, holy crap, she's in my brain. She knows me. And so that was one of the things that you
I love hearing that. And it's one of the biggest things that I talk about every single week to people about, and it freaks me out that, you know, like you've adopted that. I remember talking to you about that on one of our first calls, and you adopted it right away. I remember, I think you even sent me an email the week after praising, you know, I'm going to put myself on the soapbox here and tap myself on the back, but I'm like, then you made me feel like absolutely incredibly awesome, just because you made me feel awesome by thanking me for that thing. I think and it was like, this is really awesome. And it's such an important piece of our business to look at what the market is saying and then repeating and echoing back to them. And that's this kind of response you're going to get, is by people thinking, my God, she knows exactly what my problem is. And most of the time when people tell me they have a problem with marketing, is because they're not saying the right language. And the language is out there. It's right there for our pickings, right? Just low hanging fruit. And all we got to do is just, you know, strategically go in 10, 20% of our week, copy and paste from stuff, right? Because we're helping people out and echoing it back. And that's exactly what you're doing. And it's grown the business, right? I mean, it's got
really
you into different areas.
Yep.
I love hearing that. So like with that, or maybe there's something else, like what have you been actually able to change by going through the training inside SPL or as a member of SPL on the calls? Like what have you been actually able to change in the business?
So one thing that I feel like this has really helped was I'm doing a lot of like consult calls for women to work with me, because in order to work with me is kind of a higher ticket item. And so it's easier to sell clearly when you're like, when I'm talking to them. So we'll do a video call, I'll do a video call. And what I've been able to do through this program was learn how to create a template that converts. Nice. So at first I was just throwing, you know, wet noodles at the wall to see if they would stick, and trying to finding the language, which I knew at first, like I'm sure if I went back and watched some of my first calls, they were probably awful, but I was finding the language. I was finding the language of my ladies, and then finding a format. And one thing that you taught me, Joey, throughout this was, and it's made a huge difference, was you told me to have my client, my customer prospect, you told me to have her tell me what her problem is. Going into the call, I know what her problem is. She wants to lose weight. Like, duh, she wouldn't be on the phone with me if she didn't have a problem with trying to lose weight. But making her state that and asking her how that makes her feel, and then make her future pace what she feels like her life would be once she hit these goals, it really sets them in the right mind frame. And that was something that I learned from you. In fact, I still have a template that I follow. I keep it right next to my computer. And I just follow it on every single phone call. And it starts with what you taught me was, you make them say it. So I literally start every phone call with, tell me, Julia, what are we going to talk about today? What is your problem? What are you struggling with? And then I just be quiet and I just let them talk. And then they tell me everything they're struggling with. And then I can speak to those words that they're using. So that was gold. That came straight from you.
Thank you. And I think that, you know, when you talk about templates and scripts, this is kind of the way that I approach that mentality of templates and scripts and things like that, because people always want those, right? What do I say on the phone call? How do I say it? And this and that. But what you've got there is more of a framework. It's more of a guidance. It's like, okay, how do I start the conversation? But then I'm assuming, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm assuming that when Julia tells you about her problem, you just feed off of that feedback and you just go with it, because you're an expert. You know what it is you're trying to help somebody with. But it's not that you're going through the questions and you're not You're just waiting for them to shut up so you can get to the next question. You're not doing that. You're
No.
actually, it's a framework by going, okay, I just kind of got to remember maybe to talk about a couple of these things,
Right.
but maybe, the 4 or 5 points that you've got there, you skip number 4 because it has no relation to that call. Am I right?
Right. Or exactly. I don't always just say, okay, so how does that make you feel? Because she probably already talks about how that makes her feel.
Yeah.
Or she may already start talking about what she's trying to get to. And so I don't have to go, I don't say, okay, now how does it make you feel? Okay.
Yeah.
And what would your life be
And
like?
she's already said it.
It's totally organic. Yeah, it's totally organic. And she's already said it. Exactly. So it's really just, right, like it's more of a framework. It's really just how do I start the call? And then eventually I'd like to fill in these empty spots in my own paper for her with the words that she's using. And if she touches on them, fantastic. Then I move to the same thing. I don't always get to the third question. Maybe never, or sometimes it's the last 5 minutes of the call. It's just totally driven by the customer, but I'm trying to kind of pull information from them that I need so that I can help them best. So yeah, so framework's really a better word than template, but that's exactly what I have. And that was from you that taught me that.
That's awesome. And have the conversions changed at all? Have they gone up? Have you seen any difference there by using that type of framework?
Yeah, there is. I can actually, I'm close to closing. I don't want to, I can close probably 40% of the people that I get on the phone with me.
Wow.
Sometimes on a good week, I can close to half of them.
That's amazing.
So it's really helped a lot.
And so where were you before that? Let me give it a before and after shot for somebody.
Okay. So, well, before that, we weren't even doing phone calls. I wasn't even like trying to talk with them. We were trying to cold sell them through an email sequence and stuff like that. So it was, it's kind of hard to compare. But before that, I think that, man, I would do a ton of calls without getting sales. The first one I was like, yeah, did it. Right on, but I can't remember what the number was, but I know that it wasn't 40 to 50%. I can guarantee that.
That's awesome.
Almost like
so it's better. The answer is better.
Yeah, because it's probably a whole month's worth of calls, only making maybe 1 or 2, and I'm getting 10 to 15 calls a week. So,
wow.
Yeah. Our problem now is getting people to show up to their scheduled time. That's what converting is not the issue that we have now, which I know is a lot of people's problem. Our converting is not our problem right now. Our problem is actually getting people once they schedule the call to show up to the call. So cool.
So that's kind of cool too. See, like this is really important that you said that because you know that your process works, your sales process works. Now we also know that where it's broken, and we can focus on, okay, how do we do this? How do we get more people on the call? Because once I get them on the call, I know that 40% of them are going to convert, right? So we don't really focus on how do we make more sales. I mean, even though you do want more sales, it's more about how do I get my, let's say 10% show up rate or whatever it is, double that. How do I triple that? Because that's the most important thing, right? And then, so that's what I really want to, make sure everybody understands, that what we do at SPL is really look at where the piece is broken and where it makes most sense to fix. Because a lot of us want to fix everything. I want more people to show up. I want to make more sales. We got to fix the one piece that's going to make you more sales. And for me, if you're telling me that, hey, only 10% people show up, then let's try to get more people to show up first, right? And then once we get like a 50% or whatever you're happy with, then we can work on, let's try to get a better conversion rate, right? Whatever. Like, we just kind of analyze individually your situation. Is that like a good synopsis or summary of kind of what we do on those calls?
Yeah, it is. It's one thing. It's like, let's focus on one thing. I think as somebody who's like me, coming in, it's like you feel like you don't know where to focus, and you're like, okay, I'm going to focus on this and this and this, and you want to like pick everything out and you want to like fine tune everything at once. But the beauty is in the process. It really is, and it's frustrating. But you have to really kind of narrow in on one thing and fine tune that and make it where you want it to be, and then go to the next one. So it's kind of like, simmer down, girl, chill. Let's work on this. And then let's work on that. And that was one thing that you helped me figure out, was that it's okay. Let's fine tune this. And then when we got that where we want it to be, then we reverse engineer it. And then let's figure out the next broken piece. Or maybe it's not even broken. Maybe it can just be better, and test it.
Right. So then we can start split testing to try and beat the control, trying to make it a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. And so that was some of our calls we've gone through stuff. You're like, well, let's do this and do this and let's test this and see which one's better. Okay, this is better. Now let's test this against something else. So that was what we do on the calls. Yeah.
Cool. So you probably already answered this. Maybe this is a redundant question, but going through the program training so far, what has been the biggest part that has made the most impact on you and your business?
What, like one single thing that I've learned, or
Yeah, like what would be one thing that would, yeah, you would say if this was the only thing that I learned, I would be like, that'd be awesome. It would be the most, what was the biggest thing that you learned in SPL that has made so far the biggest impact on your business?
difference. Okay, so I can actually think of two things.
Cool.
So the first would probably be the finding the voice. You taught me how to find the voice of my customer and the framework for those calls, making them state to me what their pain point is and making them really feel it. Those two I think kind of go together.
Yeah.
And so that's been that, hands down, that's worth the price of admission right there, because you'll be able to take that almost, once you can identify that, almost this kind of everything else just kind of falls into place.
Exactly.
I remember you asking me a question on our call about where I felt like I struggled. Was it talking to my clients or making conversions or something? And you had like 3 or maybe 4, like it was like a multiple choice. Like, where do you fall here, 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 here? And I felt like I struggled at the very last point, which was conversions. And
right.
You were like, no, actually where it is, if you're struggling with conversions, the problem is not the conversions. The problem is here, and you made me backtrack it. So that was great, because you taught me how to get to that next step. So you've taken me from number 1 to number 2 to number 3, then on to number 4, and it's still growing. I'm not saying that we're perfect by any means, or where we want to be. It's still totally growing. And then the second thing that I learned that I've found really valuable in SPL was the online component, because you have a lot of training videos inside the online component. And there was some of the first videos I think were about creating a master operating manual.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and that was one area that I have struggled with, because I feel like I want to bring help on in certain areas, but I don't know how to tell them what to do or how to train them. And so it's like something that you just kind of like never do, because you just don't know. But in the online account, in the online portion of this program, there was a section on there on creating systems and like an operating manual and just like the how-to of the business, where everything's kind of nice. And so I've started creating that literally just based on those
awesome.
training. And now I have a manual, and every time I do something new, I just write the process, because eventually somebody else is going to be doing that for me.
Yep.
I want to be able to just record it and hand it to them or something like that. So that was valuable too. The online component is really valuable, because you can always pop in and watch videos, or if you're struggling with something, or if we hear you mention something in the call, there's usually a reference or resource inside the online portion of the program.
Yeah, and speaking to that is we update that monthly, on a monthly basis. There's always at least one video that is added to that online component every single month, because we have our live calls every 2 weeks, and then we have the the training that is uploaded to the SPL, because we don't want to overwhelm with all these videos and everything else. But like you said, just so they're referenced, and that community and that online portion continues to grow. So you have that always there available to you. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's really valuable, because you think, oh, I can't talk to him again for 2 weeks, but no, there's more likely there's a training inside of the account that is dealing with whatever question you have, and you've gone through it, and you've used screenshots and ScreenFlow, and you're talking, and it's there. It's just there for you to learn from. So it's the steps that you need. They're just right inside.
Awesome. And there's also the SPL Facebook group, which, that is also a way to communicate in between the calls that we're doing every 2 weeks. So
yeah.
Cool. So I don't want to keep you forever. The last thing that I want to ask you is, for anybody watching this that is considering SPL, or maybe another member who is watching this who hasn't gone as far as you have gone so far, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give someone considering to come into the SPL, or is just a brand new member, and what they might want to do?
So my advice for somebody who's considering to join the SPL is to just do it. join the program, come in, and then the second piece is to submit your information for help on the calls, because you can get your actual information looked at. Like if you say, hey, I need help, you put your hand up, you submit your information to Joey, and he looks at it. And then that is like, you're using your data, your words, your emails, you're using your work on the call, and then you go through it together to get the help that you need. And that's valuable, because and sometimes it's great to watch what other people are doing, but I'm different.
Yep.
It's different for me, or how
Yep.
does it work for me? And so it's nice to get somebody's hands and somebody's eyes on your actual work, your data, your information. And so they can fine tune it and help you, and you learn better that way. So my advice is to jump in, do it, and get signed up on a call as fast as you can, and get Joey's eyes on your information, and let him start teaching you and molding you and helping you find the way, because the process is usually, it's right there. You're right there. You're really close to being there. You just need somebody to help guide you. You just need somebody to turn the flashlight on in a dark cave. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what other.
That's cool. Thank you. That's an awesome way to do it. And you're right. Like, the SPL is all about, sometimes we learn from osmosis by watching somebody else and applying it. That's what a lot of group coaching is about. There's not really the one-on-one component. There's just like a training, and there's nothing wrong with those things. We do trainings as well. But like you said, this is a community that's built on the one-on-one portion of it, so that you can get that spotlight on your stuff that can quickly move you from confusion and distraction and all that stuff and overwhelm right to the next step, and or cleaning something up to test it. And so, yeah, you're right. Anybody considering coming in, make sure you do that. Follow what Brandi's saying, because she's a big proponent of it, and she's obviously gained from it by doing that. And if you're already a member, don't be afraid to jump on, even if you think your stuff is the beginning level or whatever. This is for you, and believe me that everybody else learns from your stuff as well. I think that a lot of beginners feel as though, this is too beginner, and all the other people are going to look at me and it's a dumb question or something like that. And I know even in coaching calls that I'm in my own coaching stuff, that I've heard stuff before, but then I still learn something by looking at that, going, I totally forgot about that. Because again, we're moving levels, and sometimes we forget about the stuff we try to overcomplicate things. At least that's the way I look at things. I think that the most simplistic things work, and because we're growing and because something's working all the time, and this is totally going off topic, but it's a teaching moment. I think that we just try to complicate things. When things are working, it's like, well, let's just pour more money into the Facebook ad. Yeah, well, let's not do Facebook ads anymore. Let's do a production video on YouTube or something. Well, no, let's just keep doing what's working and pour more money into that. We just try to overcomplicate things. And that's what happens when you become an expert. So don't feel as though, even though you are a beginner, that other people who've heard it before are not learning something. They are. So that was a whole big answer just to tell you to get on the calls and get your stuff looked at.
And don't be scared. I know that for me, I don't know if other people are like this, but I know for me, sometimes I just don't do anything. I don't do something new or different like that, just because it's unknown and I'm unsure. I've never done it before. So you just don't know. You hesitate. So the thing is, you just have to do it, just do it. And then next time will be that much easier because you've done it.
Love it. Thank you, Brandi. It's a pleasure always to talk to you. You have such a great persona on camera. Love talking to you. I know that's probably why you're so successful at what you do. I love having you in the group. And thank you for taking the time and letting other people know what your journey's been so far. And hopefully we'll get you on another call when you are a mega, mega gajillionaire.
Okay, then let's do it.
Thanks, Brandi.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later. Bye.